Welcome back to ISO 9001 in Coffee Bites. From this episode, we shall start breaking the ISO 9001 standard clause by clause. And the objective is twofold basically. One, obviously, to understand each clause of this normally it's a difficult standard to understand. So, to understand the clause, each clause of the standard, and number two, to learn how to apply it in our business and be able to evidence the same during the actual audit by an external auditor. So what is this first clause? The first clause brings new requirements compared to the 2008 version of the standard. Remember, we are doing the 2015 version of ISO 9001, and it requires the organization to determine all internal and external issues that may be relevant to the achievement of the objectives of the QMS itself. This includes all elements that are affecting these objectives and outcomes of the organization in the future. So this means that one needs to define the influences of various elements on the organization and how they reflect on the QMS. How they reflect on the QMS, the company's culture, objectives, goals, products, processes, etc., etc., etc. So it is also a means to detect risk and opportunities regarding the business context. So what is meant by the word context here? How to identify the context of the organization, right? So it is context is nothing. It's a combination of factors like both internal and external factors that directly affects the organization and its continuing ability to provide products and services for its customers. External factors obviously include the entire environment the organization operates in, like culture, social, culture can be actually internal factor as well, but depends on the culture. For example, culture of the society, right? So social, political, legal, statutory, regulatory, economic, etc. And at all levels, like local level, state level, even international or federal level, as it's known in Western countries. So internal factors include the organization's own company culture, its own governance, its structure, its vision for the future, what technology the organization is using, and its strategic decisions. So where to start? No, that's the troublesome question actually. Where to start? We understand, okay, the standard demands this internal, external context factors and all that. So where to start? So although the standard doesn't prescribe the method for determining the context of the organization, there are some logical steps and milestones. Like whenever you start operating a business, there are some logical steps. For example, first of all, you need to determine the scope of your QMS. QMS, again I am repeating, is quality management system. That's what ISO 9001 is focusing upon. So you need to determine the scope of your QMS and identify the processes and their interactions. Basically, you need to look at all the products and services in your organization and decide which processes are included or which are not included based on the internal or external issues of the organization. So now you can describe the scope by processes, geographies, and justify the applicability or non-applicability of certain requirements. For example, a simple scope statement would be that the QMS for company XYZ covers its locations in London, India, and Japan, where the company XYZ is engaged in delivery of software development and consulting services in accordance with certain A, B, C regulations. The company XYZ does not deal in trading of OEM software. So for example, as you can see now, in this scope statement that I have just told you, you have covered the locations of the organization where the organization operates in, the kind of services the organization deals in, and you have also excluded what you do not deal in, what you are not dealing in, and of course, what laws you would be governed by. So that's the scope. So first we need to understand what is the scope of business that I am operating. Once the scope of the QMS is defined together with exclusions and processes and their relations are identified, the following four steps need to be taken. First is identifying internal and external issues, then identifying internal and external parties and their needs, documenting the context of the organization. So this is nothing but overall the context. So once you have collected all the information, you will create the documentation of the context, and then you will do regular review and monitoring. So as you say, internal external issues, what are the internal issues? Well, the requirement of clause 4 is too general, and there is a risk of going too wide when defining the internal and external issues. In fulfilling this clause, you should focus only on issues that can affect the customer satisfaction and delivery of quality product and or service. So as you can see, these are some of the example of the internal context or the internal issues. An organization's internal context is the environment in which it aims to achieve its objectives. Internal context can include this approach to governance, its contractual relationships with customers, and its interested parties. Things that need to be considered are related to the culture, beliefs, values, or principles inside the organization, as well as the complexity of processes and organizational structure. What are the external issues? Well, to determine the external context, you should consider issues arising from its social, technological, environmental, ethical, political, legal, and economic environment. Examples of external context may include government regulations and changes in the law, economic shifts in the organization's market, the organization's competition, events that may affect corporate image, changes in technology, and etc. etc. Basically, all this information is in the heads of the CEO and other members of your senior management, but it was never put on paper. So the best way to gather this information is by organizing some kind of brainstorming session. Systemization of all this information can be very valuable and demonstrate where you stand as an organization. The standard requires that these analyses should be conducted, and but it does not require them to be documented, and it's up to your discretion whether you want to create a documentation around documenting the internal and external issues and context of your organization. So as I told you before as well, in the previous episodes, that I have tried to include certain objective type questions and answers. These are mainly the questions which come into the certification exam if you go in for implementer of ISO 9001 course. So here it goes. Match which of the following statements represent external issues. You can choose multiple. So organizational culture, cultural environment, the structure of the company, competition, the political situation in the country where the company operates. So which ones are external issues, and you have the option to choose multiple of them. And the correct answer is obviously organizational culture, which is, as I told you, culture is two ways. One is a culture where the organization is the culture of the society, so that's the cultural environment, that's the correct external issue. But organizational culture itself is an internal issue, and hence incorrect. The structure of the company again is an internal issue, so that's there. Well, I hope we are now clear about the first clause of ISO 9001. Do some practice, write down your scoping statement, and then document the context of your organization. When you start presenting your QMS to an external auditor, this is what breaks the ice. It's like giving an introduction about yourself to someone, isn't it? So do comment and give your feedback. Until next time, bye bye.